Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the C&J Speedway Review, live right here on YouTube on a Wednesday night. It is 8 o'clock. We are green. My name is Chris Burns from the Loki and Jabroni Show. Find us every Tuesday night, live streaming in your face on Facebook, and every Wednesday on iTunes, Google Play Music, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. The clean-shaven gentleman across the way, he is a different man than he was last week, and I'm looking forward to finding out why when the show is over. His name is Corey Huffnagel. Corey, how are we doing today?
Boy, I can tell you what, I pretty much look like I'm 20 years old than what I was last week. You know, it's instead of being one of those guys that live up in like the wilderness in West Virginia and whatnot. But no, I think it was after being on the West Coast the last 3 weeks. You know, now it's time to be back on the East Coast for pretty much 1 weekend before we hit the Easter break. And so before we get on to the racing news and what's going on in the world today. As of 4:44, NASCAR is that's the tongue twister today.
All right.
So NASCAR issued the 18 of Kyle Busch a penalty for a safety violation, which is of course the lug nuts of Corey. That one of the lug nuts was not secured in post-race inspection. Crew chief Adam Stevens was fined $10,000. Looks like there is no suspension whatsoever. Also in the Xfinity Series, the 18 car was also penalized for the same exact thing. Crew chief Eric Phillips was fined $5,000.
Wow. Look, the rules are the rules, and I know I've read some of the tweets out there. Kyle Busch is having a bad week.
Yeah.
First, nobody, according to him, no TV cameras came to see him. Well, that's because you're at the end of pit road dealing with your lug nut problem.
Yeah.
Then you don't make it to the top three presser in the truck. Whose fault is that? Not his, according to him, and now the penalties. This could add fuel to his fire. It seems like whenever Kyle Busch gets to that breaking point where you just don't think he could be penalized enough or turned around enough or angered enough or cry enough, he comes back and he wins a race. So we'll see if this is fuel, much like it was for Harvick a few weeks ago. Is this going to be fuel to have him bounce back and win a race?
For Kyle or Kevin?
Kyle.
Okay, yeah, I'd probably say Kyle Busch, yeah, I think he's going to rebound sometime soon this year. And I looked at his last three finishes, pretty much all top five, all out on the West Coast. And you think about this, like he's had a good run so far this season. And of course, the part right at the end, and I think I noticed this, was on the last pit stop where, he was about to pull out. You could see one of the crew guys had the little thing on top of the window, whatever, to like adjust the car, and then that pretty much made the car too tight, and Kyle couldn't go anywhere after that. But you look at Kyle Busch, and he doesn't take second place, like a true racer. I mean, there has been times where, whenever he finishes second, he pretty much just complains like, we could have had a good car, we should have turned that into wins whatsoever, and, put it this way. Kyle Busch is a talented racer, no doubt about it. And I think he's going to win a lot of races this year. And I think he's going to be, and once he hits that spark, there's no doubt in my mind that they're going to be the team to watch this season. But I don't know. I mean, I'd probably say, they're not really, in a panic mode just yet. But I'd probably say right now, yes, they finished in the top five of the last three races. Not bad, but, they're there, but they just have to be there at the end.
2 seconds and a third is nothing to sneeze at.
No.
There's really nothing wrong with it. Top fives look just as good on your record come Hall of Fame induction time as all the wins he's collected. So if I'm Kyle Busch, yes, I want to win every race. If I'm anybody who sits behind a wheel, from Kyle Busch down to Matt DiBenedetto, you want to win the race. It's about time you start acting like you've been there before, Kyle Busch. Seriously.
Exactly.
And that's always been a complaint of mine when it comes to Kyle Busch and the 18 team. Not so much Joe Gibbs, because, let's be honest, Joe Gibbs is salt-of-the-earth class act. But I've listened to some of his radio chatter. I've listened to him on his pre-race, post-race, and during the week rants. You would almost think he wants everybody to move out of the way and let him drive through. Sorry, Kyle, does not work that way.
Nope, it does not.
It reminds me a lot of, and I know I've said a lot of good things about him in the last few weeks, the early days of Jeff Gordon. Jeff Gordon gets into somebody, it was a racing deal. If someone got into Jeff Gordon, he wanted heads to roll. It doesn't work that way. And when Gordon had about, I'd say, 15 years under his belt, you really saw him mellow out. You really saw a different side of him where he kind of saw things differently. We are looking at Kyle Busch now, who is probably 15 years in. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but Kyle Busch is a veteran. And he's still acting like a petulant 22-year-old who just took his participation trophy away.
Exactly.
He needs to get his adult hat on and get out there. Not only be a good role model for his son, but be a good role model for the young kids that run around wearing yellow 18 gear every Sunday.
And fans, too.
Oh, absolutely. Whether old, young, 8 to 80, blind, cripple, or crazy, be a role model. Speaking of role models, before I get into the story I have printed out, I'd like you to bow your head. You don't have to take off your hat if you're wearing one, but let's say goodbye to the Kevin Harvick Appreciation Tour, which came to a screeching halt on lap 39 this past weekend. I want to read this story because if you heard any of the radio chatter during the Monster Energy Cup race at Auto Club Speedway this weekend, Kyle Larson, basically, without talking to Harvick first or seeing the video, was saying Harvick was driving like an idiot. What is this guy doing? He's a vet. He should know better than this. This is a story I printed out from NASCAR.com. I'm going to read it verbatim. Kevin Harvick's bid to win a fourth consecutive Cup race ended on lap 39 of Sunday's Auto Club 400. Harvick and Kyle Larson were racing for third place out of turn 2 when they made contact, a result of Harvick trying to side draft. The contact sent Harvick's number 4 Ford to the outside wall before it slid to the backstretch apron. Harvick's team made repairs to the car, and he was able to continue. When the race resumed, Harvick was 2 laps down. He finished 35th, 9 laps down. Later in the race, Harvick and crew chief Rodney Childers discussed the accident over the radio. Quote, "Shit happens," Childers said. "You lose some, you win some. We get to race every week. We'll get through today, and we'll go race next week." End quote. Quote by Harvick, "Just a weird spot there. When I went to pull down, I thought he was coming up, and I pulled it back to the right and spun it out." Harvick took full responsibility for the accident after the race. "I don't know that it was Kyle's fault. I think it was my fault for coming down the racetrack right there and trying to side draft." Harvick later added, "It was a dumb mistake on my part. The race car was there. I just made a mistake." Larson goes on to finish second, his best result of the season. Harvick had started 10th and made it to the top 5 by lap 14. So right there, we go from talking about one veteran who can't stop crying the blues about what didn't happen to him and how it could have been better and whatever, to another veteran, another champion, who says, "You know what? I screwed up. It was my fault."
Yeah.
And in watching that the first time around, I actually thought Larson came up and bumped him. And of course, you know Fox is going to show 8,000 replays while they go around the track and open up pit road. And when they showed it from a couple different angles, you could see Harvick in that side draft get a little loose. He had nowhere to go. Larson's not going to give up that line. Again, we're not about moving over to let somebody go by you.
Right.
You want the position, race to take the position. Harvick got squirrely, ends up in the wall. Bid for 4 is out the window. No big deal. We go on to Martinsville this coming week. But when you listen to Kyle Larson on the radio, and I haven't read or heard anything that he said since, so I'm going to give Kyle Larson the benefit of the doubt here. Maybe he's changed his story. Maybe he's seen the video. Maybe he's talked to Kevin Harvick. Who knows? Who cares?
Right.
But to hear him on the radio, "That guy's driving like an idiot. He should know better. Da 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 da." You're both hurtling around that track near 200 miles an hour. Something happens like that. You have but a split second to react. Your reaction shouldn't be, "What is this idiot doing?" It's not like he was banging you. It wasn't like he was shoving you down the racetrack. He wasn't pulling rookie mistakes. Aerodynamics are what they are. Anybody who knows anything about NASCAR, who watches this show, knows that the side draft is dangerous.
Yeah.
It takes air off both the cars. One of them has to give. In this situation, it was the number 4 Busch Ford. It was not the number 42 who went on to take second place. If I'm Kyle Larson, and I'm going to look later, I really want to have all my ducks in a row. If he has come back and said, "You know what? Hey, I'm sorry about the comments I made. It just happens," I'll buy it. If he doesn't, I'll chalk it up to youth. He's still a young guy. He's still relatively new to the sport on the top level. So, yeah, I'd give him a pass quicker than I'd give Kyle Busch a pass.
Yeah, I looked at the replay too, and you can clearly see that, once Harvick came down, Kyle Larson came up, and I thought, well, I looked at the replay myself, and I would say that it was a racing deal, and besides the fact that I think the reason why Harvick's car got loose was maybe, and just maybe, he probably hit one of the seams on that racetrack because, California hasn't been repaved in like such a long time whatsoever, and then of course that's what made the car go sideways and so ever. And you're pretty much right in your opinion. Harvick did admit in his interview that he messed up, and there has been a lot of veteran drivers that'll come out and say, like, I messed up, I did this, blah 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 whatsoever. But I'd probably say, going back to last Sunday, had it would have been different, those guys could have been racing side by side going to the corner, but it was just, in my opinion, it was probably a freak accident deal whatsoever.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And again, I'm going to really temper myself here because I'm trying not to jump on the F Kyle Larson train because I don't want to. A, because I think he's a talented driver and I kind of like him. And B, right. I have to go upstairs later and be with my Kyle Larson fan girlfriend. So yeah. I'm not gonna throw that into the water anyway. Like you said, it's one of those racing deals. It happens. It wasn't like they smashed into each other. Both cars weren't irreparably damaged. Harvick did get to go back out there, saving himself from a DNF, which betters his average finish. Not by much, because he finished 35th, 36th. Where was that on the sheet? I don't even remember. Hold on. Did I? 35th. Okay. So he wasn't last, but he wasn't first. And he got out there. He avoids the DNF, which everybody knows is a racer's nightmare. Yep. Nobody wants to put the car up on the hauler early and pull out under the tunnel. Nobody. And the car was very competitive in those 30-some laps before the crash happened. Harvick dropped back in the beginning, if you remember, and I know we're stepping on the usual format, and we'll get to that in just a minute. Harvick actually dropped back 9 or 10 spots in the beginning of the race. He just got hung out. Right. But then he was getting, what was it Michael Waltrip said a couple years ago? He was being all Kevin Harvicky. Or as they said during Phoenix, that's Harvick. He's Harvicking right now. He's just weaving through. He's doing his thing. He's throwing out the hook, and he's reeling him in. And he was doing that. This was just unfortunate. Again, watching it the first time, I was ready to send hate mail to Kyle Larson. I don't know. Send him other things, too. I don't want to get too insensitive because we've had a lot of things going on in the world recently that I'd really rather not have that on my shoulders. No. But then you watch the replays, and you see the air gets off of Harvick. He had complained a little bit in the opening. I'm fast, but I'm loose. So now you add fast and loose into the side draft, air coming, not being pushing down on the car for downforce, accident waiting to happen. Guess what? He got in the accident. Yep. Tough deal. We go on to Martinsville next week. So anything new and exciting you want to talk about before we go into this weekend's past two races?
Well, so I want to give your take on yesterday, and apparently Richard Childress Racing announced that Daniel Hemirc is going to be racing in the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. So he is going to run 2 races this year. He's going to run the race at Richmond, which he'll make his debut, and then his second race will be on the Roval at Charlotte. So This was actually funny because last night I posted this on my NASCAR IndyCar Instagram page. So one person that pretty much came out, and if I can pull that up for about 1 second.
Sure.
So he says, so at Hunter J. Carpenter, he ends up writing saying, he's running the oval, not the Roval. So I told him, I said, okay, according to NASCAR.com, he's running the Roval. And, and pretty much, when they post that out on the article, the article never lies. And he says, I thought he was running the 600, whatever. He said, and I said, no, he's running the Roval, and which I'm actually kind of surprised about. But the good thing is about it, we all saw what Hemirc did on the road course last year at Mid-Ohio. If you could recall where he and Sam Hornish Jr. were the only guys that were battling for that win, and Hemirc ended up coming in second. I thought, Hemiric's not too bad of a road racer, And then Road America, he did pretty good. And then this year, he hasn't been that, Well, he's been decent, but other than that, like, that team is there, but they just have to, like, you know, be there at the end. But actually, what was kind of funny was that RCR was bringing back the number 8 car. Now that had me thinking, okay, now even though that used to be Dale Jr.'s number, that used to belong to then DEI and all that other stuff in between, I thought they were going to kind of make it like throwback, kind of like Dale Jr.'s number almost. But other than that, like, if you kind of look at it real closely, you can pretty much see that, the numeral 8 kind of looks like, Ralph Earnhardt's number, like back in the day, like in the 50s whatsoever. But you look at Daniel Hemirc, and I'm going to be watching him not only at Richmond, but at the Roval at September. And let's say that if he finishes in the top 5, those 2 races, something tells me that Richard Childress might go back to a 3-car team in the Cup Series, and he might put Daniel Hemirc full-time in 2019. Now, is that possible? I don't know, but that's what I'm pretty much predicting at this point.
Well, anything's possible, especially when you bring a young guy up. You're going to give him these 2 opportunities, which I think is great. Richmond is a track that fits Hemric's driving style. And the Roval, like you said, at Mid-Ohio, he was really cleaning up. So you give him these 2 opportunities, especially on a track that nobody has on the Charlotte Roval. Nobody has the edge. Everybody's going in there with the same empty notebook. And at the end of it, they're all going to have a book full of notes. Daniel Hemirc now has those same notes. He has the experience of being, I was one of the first guys on this thing. That's a great move. Going back to the number 8 being a Dale Jr. number, I know a lot of people still, he's only been retired for a couple months now, but Junior Nation is still out there. Whether it was the 8, the 88, doesn't matter. They love that guy. And when I think of the 8, I mean, a couple names come to mind. Obviously, the first is Dale Earnhardt Jr. Then I think of Hutch Strickland and that old Circuit City Ford back in the day. Jeff Burton drove the number 8 Snickers car for a spell. A lot of great guys, and Hutch Strickland, have driven in the number 8. So to bring it back is fantastic. To give it its own identity, though, much like you said, it is reminiscent of the old Ralph Earnhardt 8 from back in the 50s. But it has its own look. When I saw that car, and I'm a big fan of green cars for some reason. I don't know what it is. Those green race cars look fantastic out there. Daytime, nighttime, doesn't matter. A green race car is a gorgeous race car. So I'm happy that it has a look and a sponsor. That red, white, yellow, black kind of, they all come together just right. I even like it when Kyle Busch every now and again runs the double mint gum car, because that is a sweet looking car.
Oh, yeah.
The number 18 Interstate that was driven by Dale Jarrett, Bobby Labonte, and Kyle Busch. Sweet-looking race car. There's something about a green car. And they say green cars are unlucky. I think we've proven that wrong over the years with Bobby Labonte, with Kyle Busch, and hopefully now with Daniel Hemirc. I'm excited to see him on the Cup level. I want to see how he does.
And what's actually funny is that I probably say the reason why, I think Richard Childress wanted to bring the number 8 back in the Cup Series was... It's actually kind of the odd fact was Daniel Hemirc is actually from Kannapolis, North Carolina. So Richard thought, okay, so if we bring the number 8 car back, and even though Daniel's from Kannapolis, that'll bring a lot of Earnhardt fans, excited and all that other stuff in between.
Yeah, I can see that point. One thing I think they should really try to avoid is trying to bring those Earnhardt fans to this new... let them go, let them find their own way. When Senior died, a lot of people went to the Harvick train. A lot of people went to the Junior train. A lot of people went to different trains. Let them find their way. Don't go fishing for those fans, because you're going to catch less. You're not going to hook all of those fans just because you're waxing nostalgic. I'm quite sure that a lot of Earnhardt fans aren't exactly rooting for Austin Dillon right now, because they remember that iconic tilted 3. And in many opinions, mine included, I wouldn't have given Austin Dillon that number. I may have given it to a vet. I may have tried to sell the rights to the number to another team and let Junior finish out his career in that number 3.
Right.
A lot of different things they could have done. I like Austin Dillon. I think he's a little smarmy at times, but hell of a race car driver. I really don't have a problem with him, other than he just looks like a guy you want to sock in the mouth for no reason. But he's good at what he does, and he's proved that he's earning the right to be in that iconic number 3.
Right.
So let's move forward if we can. We'll go back in time to this Saturday's Roseanne 300. Whoa, watch out for that. Yeah, how about that?
Yeah, that was something.
Okay, now almost. Yeah, well, again, new setup, but hey, other than the phone dropping, I haven't dropped yet, so that's a good thing.
Right.
Credit to producer Eddie Focus for his nudnickery and geniusness, and that's where I'll leave it. So the Roseanne 300, kind of surprising that the upstart reboot TV show Roseanne is the sponsor of the race, but pretty cool in the end. I thought it was awesome. No surprise to you, I think you picked him to win last week. Joey Logano comes home in first.
Well, I mean, all I can just tell you is that the 22 car was really dominant this past weekend. He led 139 out of the race's 150 laps, and I would say that the first time he took the lead in front of Christopher Bell, like early in the race, you could pretty much tell that the 22 car was just going to be the dominant car, like from start to finish. And I'd say, like, nobody wouldn't have even catched him. And I think there was a time where I think Logano kind of, had the lead for about maybe like 5-6 seconds, and then everybody else was trying to get second place whatsoever. But actually, when I was looking at the entry list last week, I said, okay, the only two Cup guys that are running are Joey Logano and Austin Dillon. So I thought, okay, no big guys are racing with Rick Keselowski and Busch. So I thought, okay, Logano's probably going to be the one that's going to be tough to beat. Austin Dillon, he's kind of, well, he has a couple of Xfinity wins and he's won a championship, with the no wins he had in that season. But honestly, like when I looked at the entry list, I thought the only guy that everybody's going to have to beat is Joey Logano. And Saturday pretty much proved that, that 22 car was on a dominant streak. And, from start to finish, nobody could touch him throughout the whole entire race.
Oh, yeah, and I'm looking back at my picks from last week. I had Logano as the lock and Ryan Preece as the sleeper. They both finished in the top 10. Great day for both of them. I only caught a portion of the race, but like you said, Logano just looked unbeatable.
Yep.
Unbeatable. Obviously, there wasn't a lot of guys that were going to touch him. I didn't think anybody had anything, even if they had a late restart. No one was going to touch Logano at the end. No, nobody. So I'll run down the top 10 real quick. Obviously, number 1, Joey Logano. Justin Allgaier second. Elliott Sadler third. Austin Dillon came home fourth. Daniel Hemirc fifth. Cole Custer sixth. Tyler Reddick seventh. Matt Tifft eighth. Ninth was Ryan Preece, and 10th was Ross Chastain. Other notables. Kaz Gralla came in 14th. We had Christopher Bell in 21st. I have a question about Christopher Bell when we get to the end of this.
All right.
Austin Cindric, 28th. John Hunter Nemechek, 29. Dylan Lupton, 33rd. And field filler J.J. Yeley, who no matter what he does, he's always going to be in the 30s, comes in at 34. Is it too early to hit the panic button on Christopher Bell in the Xfinity Series?
No, I don't think it's too early for him to hit the panic button just yet. I mean, let's keep in mind, he started on the pole, could have had the car to win the race. Yes, there was one part where he spun out, and then next restart he ends up getting collected by Michael Annett, which was probably not his own doing whatsoever. But I'd probably say, once we hit the mile-and-a-half tracks like Texas and Charlotte and anywhere else around, the next couple of tracks this season, I really think the 20 car is going to be strong, and you're going to see that car run up front, and hopefully they can win a race or two before the playoffs start this season. But other than that, I still think Bell is going to be the one to beat. I still think he's going to win races, and I really think it's going to take a little bit of time for him to learn, because last year, which of course Jens was on the mile-and-a-half, which was great, but now you're running with the Cup guys every week, so you can't even tell who you're going to be running with from Cup. It could be Kyle Busch, it could be Logano, it could be Eric Jones, it could be anybody. But I say that Christopher Bell. No, I don't think it's time for him to hit the panic button just yet.
Okay, I'll buy into that. Obviously, no surprise. Everybody's going to say Joey Logano was, the belle of the ball. Was there a disappointment in this race you took away?
Disappointment that I had was John Hunter Nemechek. Started third. He could have had the best car, to finish in the top 5, and then he had that tire failure early in the race, and Yeah, not a really good start for that 42 team, especially for Nemechek, who made a second start for Ganassi. But I would say that, and also this year, I'm also going to be keeping my eye out on Nemechek, and this is going to be another one who I think is going to be fun to watch this year too.
Okay, excellent. So as we go forward to the Auto Club 400, which we spoke briefly about, Martin Truex Jr., he was my lock. He comes in first. Only led 12 laps, got out to that late lead, and like they say, you only have to lead one lap of the race to come home with the trophy. Martin Truex found a way. Kyle Larson was second. You know what? Let's talk a little about the race. We've already talked about the Harvick deal.
Yeah.
I'm a little disappointed, even though he battled his way back to fourth. Brad Keselowski did not have a banner day this weekend. It seemed like he was struggling a lot.
Yeah.
What do you think's going on with them?
I would have to say it was probably the handling this past weekend.
Okay. Another one I wanted to mention, Jimmy Johnson, not happy with a top 10. Jimmy! What the heck, bro? A top 10. Again, when they look at you in the Hall of Fame, or when they praise your career, when it's all done, what are the top 4 stats they look at? Wins, top 5s, top 10s, championships.
Yeah.
He has a resume full of this stuff. Except the top 10. Yes, I know the 48 has had bad luck all season long. Yes, I know that at the end of this season, Lowe's is going bye-bye, and they're going to have to find a new sponsor for Jimmy Johnson to go through at least until 2020 when his contract expires and or they pick it up again. If I'm Jimmy Johnson and I've had a string of bad luck, I'm going to look at 9th place and go, you know what? We're going in the right direction. Get your hand a little further away from that button, and let's take this as a small victory.
Right.
So why do you think Jimmy Johnson's all bent out of shape?
Well, clearly I have to say that, the 48 team hasn't got off to the best start of the season, and not to mention this is actually the first top 10 finish for the 48 team this year. But if you go back to last year, Jimmy and the 48 team pretty much won early in the season. But then comes a time where in the summer, and this usually happens most of the time, where in the summertime is where the 48 team has struggled. And they've struggled a lot. I mean, not to mention, once they win the races in the early part of the season, now you're locked into the playoffs until September comes. But now, it pretty much did you do the whole race? Once you win the races, it's fine. But then you get a couple of DNFs. Everybody's all going to start looking at you and say I don't know if he's going to be a right pick to win the championship whatsoever, and so forth. I mean, if you look at last year, I don't think anybody picked the 48 to win the championship, and I'd probably say they didn't even pick him to win the championship in 2016. But everyone says that this is a team that you don't count out, and of course, they're there at the end whatsoever. Well, you go to last year, they could have went to the championship, but they ended up cutting a tire early in the race at Phoenix, which that cost them his championship hopes and so forth. But you go to this year, I mean, yes, I really don't know what's wrong with them and also the 48 and all the other Hendrick teams and so forth. But now we're going to a track next week where Jimmy's had a lot of success. He's won, I believe, 9 races, on the paperclip. And I would say that if he doesn't win next week or this weekend coming up, then I'm going to have to pretty much say what's wrong with Jimmy Johnson. But it's funny because you look at his results from Auto Club, he literally has the most wins all time, winning 6 races, and the last time he won there was back in 2016. So mostly every single track except Chicago and Kentucky were mostly tracks where Jimmy's dominated and won races throughout his whole entire career.
A lot of his bad luck this year has not been his fault. So I think maybe he needs to take maybe a little stock in that and say, all right, tire goes down here, not my fault. Get involved in a wreck, not my fault. We have a 9th place finish. The season is young. We are 5 races in. So let's take this as a step in the right direction. Even he, 2 weeks ago, was talking about we need to do something to turn this season around. After 3 weeks of racing, we need to turn this around. You come home with a top 10. Your car is not dinged up in the least. You ran a pretty good race all day long, didn't lead a lap, but you were competitive. You know what you do? You look, like you just said, you look forward. I'm going to Martinsville.
Yeah.
I'm going to a track where I've had huge success over the years. This is going to be my time to shine. So I'm going to run through the top 10 real quick, and then we'll get our the bell of the ball and our disappointment. Pretty much you guys already figured my disappointment out. Martin Truex comes home with the checkered flag this weekend. Kyle Larson second. Kyle Busch third. We already mentioned him. Brad Keselowski fourth. Joey Logano fifth. Denny Hamlin sixth. Eric Jones with a good seventh place finish. Ryan Blaney also with a good finish in eighth. Jimmy Johnson ninth, and Austin Dillon 10th. Other notables, Clint Boyer. Wow, he's hanging around, man. I have a feeling Clint Boyer's going to win himself a race this year and end the streak of bad luck. So he came in 11th. Kurt Busch, 14th. Chase Elliott, 16th. Oh, man. Ryan Newman, 21st. And you go down the list to find Kevin Harvick in 35th. Who was the shining star and who was the disappointment?
So, my shining star this weekend, I'm going to have to say pretty much Eric Jones. Even though now he's the new driver for Joe Gibbs Racing, I still think this is going to be a team that's going to be a one to watch this season. And I really think Jones could win a race or two, or maybe how many races they win in the regular season this season. So he was pretty much my my star of the weekend. My disappointment, my disappointment would have to say Kevin Harvick, because not only he was going to win 4 races in a row, but I actually picked him as one of my starters in the NASCAR Fantasy League this past weekend, and he only scored me 1 point, so I was literally tanking throughout the whole entire weekend and so forth. But no, I really think the Ford team, I'm not going to count those guys out either. I mean, I'd probably say that right now, once we get to the mile and a half, especially Texas in a few weeks, I really think the Fords and the Toyotas are going to be the one to watch when we go to the Lone Star State.
Mm-hmm. I mean, when we talk about Martinsville in a few minutes, the one thing I always point out to people who maybe don't watch racing as much as they used to, or they look at this small, tight little paperclip track. It doesn't matter what your car looks like when you bring it there. There's going to be dents. There's going to be rubs. You're going to get the tire donut on the side. Yeah. Everybody is packed. It's like packing 5 pounds of bologna into a 1 pound bag. It's going to be hell on earth. For the drivers, for us in the stands or on television, it's exciting.
Oh, yeah.
So the California race, wide open. Texas, wide open. But in the middle of those 2 wide opens, you have this small little bull ring, paper clip. Again, you're jamming 5 pounds of bologna into the 1 pound bag. I'd have to say, and I'm going to shock a lot of people, my shining star was Kyle Busch. There was a guy that hung around that top 5 all day long, looked strong, had the lead for quite a while. What did he lead? 62 laps in that race? Yeah, 62. He really did. If Harvick had stayed in there and not gotten into the crash, we all know how fast he was. We saw him crawl through the field, get to that spot. They're battling for 4th, and then he crashes. Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch were the class of the field. Didn't turn out good for either one of them. Turned out better for Kyle Busch. So for him, that's my shining star of the race. And, of course, I have to go with Harvick. I was really hoping for that 4th win. People texting me before the race, hey, go for 4 the win, yada, yada. I'm like, don't do this. Because every time I get my hopes up, my man ends up with an accordion for a car. Luckily, he was able to go out, get points, not have the DNF. It was disappointing. And I'll give you the exact quote. Angela had been taking a nap in the beginning portion of the race. I'm cooking at the time. I'd put the dinner in. The race is going on. I hear my timer going off, so I got to get up, short walk to the kitchen. She looks at the TV and says, oh, look, Harvick and Larson right next to each other. Where's Harvick running? Because she knew what this race was and what it meant historically. I said, they're battling for 3rd and 4th right now. Harvick turns. He's in the wall. He's scooting across the backstretch. And I just looked at her. I said, well, there goes 4 in a row. The meatloaf's done.
Yep.
You can't get upset, man. Back in the day, I'd get wicked upset at stupid things like this. I can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
It was just another day at the track, and I hate to use cuss language on here, but Childers said it best on the radio. Shit happens. Let's get back out there next week. Let's go to Martinsville. Right. You've won there before. let's make it a good day. I was thrilled with both these races. Not a boring moment. I told you I had a question. Who was I going to ask you about? Chase Elliott, right?
Yeah.
Was it Chase Elliott? Okay. I know we're not hitting the panic button. I know he's young. I know he's got all the potential in the world. But if I remember correctly, you are picking Chase Elliott for something that we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
When is this kid going to show his real stuff?
He is probably going to show it. I'd probably say sometime this year. I don't know when. But, they're running good. But they just have to be there at the end. And they got to start contending for the race lead. They got to start contending for wins. And not to mention, they got to be up front almost every week. But, even though Hendrick's in kind of a little bit of a struggle right now, I'd have to say that, once they find that spark, then they're gonna start leading laps, hopefully win races, and I'm hoping that 9 team, can find some success this season.
One word that keeps coming to my mind when it comes to Hendrick Motorsports is something they had for years and years and years, and it doesn't seem like they have it right now, and that's balance.
Yeah.
There's no balance. When you look at some of these race results from the last few weeks, you don't see a lot of Hendrick guys in the top 10. 1, sometimes 2. William Byron was 15th this weekend.
Yeah.
Chase Elliott, 16th. Jimmy Johnson, 9th. To be honest, sometimes I can't even remember who their 4th driver is. That's how bad it is right now. You got the 24, the 9, the 48. Who else is there? Off the top of your head, who's the 4th driver in Hendrick?
Bowman.
I'm sorry, you cut out.
Alex Bowman.
Alex Bowman, who came home 13th this week. Again,
Yeah.
3 guys below that 10 cutoff, 1 guy in the top 10. There's no balance. I'm not saying they have to be dominant 1, 2, 3, 4 every week. But there's something that the team, not just the 48 team and not just the 9 team, that the collective Hendrick Motorsports is not doing right and not giving these guys, whether it's competitive equipment or the spotters maybe not doing something wrong. Maybe they're having a problem in the pits. Maybe it's already in their heads, whether it's Jimmy Johnson, the seasoned veteran, 7-time champion, or Alex Bowman, young upstart. Okay, I hope nothing screws up this week. Because if you go into a race thinking that, guess what? Something is going to screw up. How many times in your life did you take a test in school and go, gee, I hope I do really well on this test, and then you blew it because you got into your own head? And I'm really hoping for the competitiveness of this sport that we love, that Hendrick Motorsports can find the balance and go back to being Hendrick Motorsports in capital letters.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at Daytona. I mean, of course, the 88 car, I mean, he had a shot to finish in the top 5 that race, and, he got caught up in a big wreck. But I have to say that, there's a couple of tracks where I really think Hendrick's going to be the one to beat, and then, there's going to be tracks where, I just really think they need to have improved on. But, like I said, it's only 5 races in, so, yes, I mean, Jimmy Johnson finished in the top 10 Sunday, which is his first top 10 of the season and first top 10 for Hendrick. But it's going to be interesting to see how this team ends up doing, from now until we get to September.
All right, here's what I'm going to do. Because like we said, like I like to say on the Logan Jabroni show, and I say it here sometimes, it's our show. We can change the rules.
Okay.
Instead of just a lock and a sleeper, I know we threw in a hopeful not long ago. So if you're, I can see you turning already. You're going to your computer. We're going to start talking about Martinsville in just a minute. For the Cup Series only.
Okay.
We're going to have lock, sleeper, hopeful. And that's going to be the new gimmick going forward. And I haven't even written one down. You can see I'm over to the side with a pen doing my bit, and I'll get to that when we talk about Martinsville. One thing I find interesting is that the Xfinity Series is off this weekend. They don't return until the series goes to Texas, and they'll be piggybacking the Cup Series. I know their schedule is a tad bit different than the Cup Series, where it's not 36 races. I think they do, 32?
33.
33, okay. this early in the season, I think that's a bad move. I think, yes, I understand summertime, everybody's out, the sun is shining, the beer is cold, and the racing's hot. Why not schedule these for maybe June when the weather's unpredictable? Sometimes it rains, sometimes it's cold, sometimes it's hot, sometimes, heck, in certain parts of the United States, because Alaska's included, it snows in June.
Yep.
Why not give them like a little summer vacation? Give them that weekend off. Because right now, for the Xfinity Series, it is important for them to keep continuing this momentum, giving those young drivers the opportunity to get out there week after week after week, not having to hop on a jet and go to places like Phoenix, Eldora, etc., so forth, where they're just hungry to be inside a race car.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, I probably say, and not only I wish the Xfinity Series would have more races on their schedule, but I wish the Truck Series, had more races on their schedule too, because, at one point, the trucks had like a 25 race schedule, and there were times, the last couple of years where, racetracks were taken off because, of sponsorship issues, and then this and that, and this and that, this, that, so forth, and whatever. I remember there were times where the Truck Series used to race at like Richmond. They used to race at Gateway. They used to race at Nashville. They used to race on like the local short tracks at like Louisville and all those other places like back in like the 90s and the 2000s. I mean, heck, the Truck Series raced on road courses at Sonoma and Watkins Glen, and not to mention Portland, which of course IndyCar is going back there Memorial Day weekend and so forth. But I want to say that, I think for the Truck Series, like, the one thing that I really think they should improve on their schedule is I think they should have more short tracks. I really think they need to have more short tracks on their schedule. Maybe throw a couple in like 1.5 miles, so 1 mile and so forth. Because honestly, like, it's a shame that the trucks got rid of New Hampshire off the schedule, and I think that was perfect for them because, it's a 1 mile racetrack and so forth. And I really don't think that, NASCAR should have like all these like 2 races a year type of thing. Like, I mean, yes, I get it that Las Vegas has 2 races because they want to make their city, popular. They want to make Monster Energy popular out there and so forth. But you go to the Xfinity Series, I mean, I could just say that if the Xfinity Series was racing this weekend, they should bring them to Martinsville. Because the last time that series raced there was back in 2006. I remember firsthand that was when Kevin Harvick was back when he was in the 21 car for RCR, and he dominated that race that day and ended up winning. Not to mention, the Xfinity Series has been to Martinsville, I think, since like from the late 80s to like the 90s and so forth, and that was one of their races where they ended, which was then the Busch Series career and whatever. Mm-hmm. And then of course you go to the Cup Series schedule. Everybody's probably going to be talking about, okay, when are the Cup guys going to go to Iowa? Because there has been rumblings, that fans are saying like, we really want a Cup race at Iowa and all that, like, because the racing out there is great. There's a lot of side by side action, whatever. But also, here's another fact: there was actually a time where that NASCAR wanted to have a Cup race at Kentucky, and this was back in like 2007, where I guess that track promoter at the time said, no, we can't have the track Cup race at Kentucky and all that. So then that pretty much brought them to court. They had a lawsuit and everything. And, and a couple of years later, Bruton Smith ends up buying the track. And then, boom, Kentucky gets a Cup race in 2011 and so forth. But I would say that, the way that NASCAR, and they do a good job at doing the schedule and whatever, but I really think they need to add more races on the schedule. I mean, they really need to add more short tracks to the Truck Series, and heck, I would say that the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series should go back to O'Reilly Raceway Park, which was that racetrack that's right across town from Indianapolis. And you look at that race, you look at that track the last couple of years, that's had a lot of great moments, especially on that tight little bull ring and whatever.
Oh, ORP is one of the best tracks to watch a race, whether it's on television or live. Just a fantastic facility, and you're right. It would be a great addition to some of these schedules. I agree with you. The trucks leaving New Hampshire, not a good move. It was a great way for those young drivers, again, to get experience on a track like that. Plus, get out there and win on a track that is, for all intent and purpose, a tough, flat track. And you don't get a lot of those, unfortunately, in the series. There's only Martinsville and Martinsville and New Hampshire are the only flat tracks, really.
Yep.
So it's important to have different weaves in the clothing, if you will, to have those different tracks so the guys can get out there and show their stuff and learn. It can't always be 1.5 mile oval, guys. It can't always be 2.5 mile super speeds. You got to have the Bristols. You got to have the Martinsvilles. I love Richmond to death. One of my favorite tracks ever, whether it's going to see a race there live or playing it on a video game or just watching it on television. Fantastic track. You brought up earlier Iowa as a possible Cup spot. Obviously, they can't run more than 36 weeks. You got to have that off season. What would you take away to give Iowa the spot?
I mean, I've actually talked a few of my friends on this topic, and I would say, in my opinion, the one race that I would take off would have to be Kansas. I would take off the Kansas Spring race, and I would put the Iowa race in there. Now, I know that's kind of tough because, you got the Hollywood Casino, and, the fans want to go there because of that and all that other stuff and so forth, but that's the only one that I would have to take off as of right now.
See, I'm going to go in a different direction because I've never been there live, but I can't stand watching any race from this track on television. I believe they still have 2 dates. I could be wrong, but take one of those wretched Pocono races out of the schedule and give it to Iowa. Give us some exciting racing. Pocono is like watching paint dry. Pocono is like watching rainfall. Pocono is like watching 50 Shades of Grey. It's not something I want to do.
Right.
So, if you want another exciting, door-to-door, fast and furious race not on a super speed, it is smaller. What is it? 7/8?
Yeah, it's 7/8 of a triangle, and it's funny because it used to be 500 miles, and then they changed it to 400 miles a couple of years ago.
If you want an exciting race, door-to-door, bang action on a short track, take away the long, boring, War and Peace style Pocono race. Give that spot to Iowa. If Pocono still has 2 dates, keep one. Keep one so the folks in Pennsylvania can get a little boon every year. But it's boring. Oh my Lord, I can't tell you how boring. It's like watching a British documentary.
Right.
After a while, it just gets old.
Actually, one other thing before we go on to the next topic. So, remember, and you know how like the Xfinity Series goes to Indianapolis every year?
Yes.
Do you see how many fans that are in the seats? Whenever the Xfinity guys race there.
At ORP?
No, at Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Oh no, I don't actually.
There's every time I watch an Xfinity race in Indianapolis Motor Speedway, there's not literally a lot of crowds that fill in the seat on Saturdays compared to what it is on Sundays. So I was kind of thinking about this a few minutes ago, and I thought, I do admit, NASCAR, I do give them a good job for, having them race in Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but I remember when they made that change, I thought, they should have raced at ORP, right across town. I think it would have been perfect, but I don't know. I mean, the racing in Indianapolis is great. Don't get me wrong, and especially the fact that, now that Indianapolis Motor Speedway is going to be the season finale, which I'm kind of questioned about because, the racing in Indianapolis, I have to admit, it's kind of boring in my book. I mean, don't get me wrong. The restarts are exciting, but, usually after 5 laps, it's usually single file and pretty much catching the lead the whole entire time. But if you look at the Xfinity race last year, NASCAR pretty much came out with a high aero package or an aerodynamic package, whatever it was, and basically it was kind of you see at Talladega and Daytona, everybody was drafting down the back straightaway, and then they would get a run going into the corner, whatever. That's what I really want to see in September, not only in the Xfinity race, but in the Cup race in September. Because the reason why is I want to see Indianapolis run great. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a great racetrack. It's got a lot of history, especially the fact with the Indianapolis 500, no question about it. But I really want to see a lot of great racing at the Brickyard, in my view.
I'll buy all of it, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love watching Indianapolis, whether it's the Brickyard 400 or whatever name they have now. I always loved watching ORP. It's a shame that they're not running there anymore, but you're right. Indy racing is exciting. And
Yeah,
if you want to build excitement and you want that to be your season finale before you go into the playoffs, yes, great place to do it.
no
So,
question.
as we move on, we go to Martinsville. Unfortunately, I don't have the phone gimmick in front of me. It is in front of me, but it's filming me right now. So we're going to have Corey give you the rundown on the Truck Series race and the Cup race, and then we're going to give our locks and our sleepers. And in the Cup race, we're going to give our hopefuls.
Okay, so the first race of the weekend where NASCAR will be in Martinsville will be the Alpha Energy Solutions 200 for the Camping World Truck Series, and this is the first time they are back in I'd say about 3 weeks when they were at Las Vegas. And so looking at the entry list, you can see that, there's going to be a lot of young guys in this field because now, we're going to see guys that are like 16, 17 years old, and whatever age it is, it's possible. So, no Cup guys racing this weekend. You got Timothy Peters, who's going to be in the field, I think, for the first time since last year. So he's going to be in the 92 truck for Ricky Benton Racing. Other notables, you have John Hunter Nemechek, who's going to be in the 8 truck for Nemco Motorsports, whatever team it is, and so forth. Todd Gilliland is going to be in the 4 truck for Kyle Busch Motorsports. Harrison Burton is going to be in the 51 truck for KBM as well. So, I mean, I look at this entry list, for the truck guys this weekend, and I look at it, I say to myself, this race is probably going to be won by a KBM truck because, they got a lot of good guys, lined up for this field.
Absolutely. And as you said, it's going to be a KBM day. My lock is Noah Gragson in the 18.
Okay.
My sleeper, I picked him last time the trucks were out there, and I'm going to pick him again, Dalton Sargent. There's something about this kid that I really like. I see him winning sooner than later.
Okay. So my lock for this weekend, it's definitely going to be the 21 of Johnny Sauter because you think about it. After he won the race at Daytona, he's finished runner-up twice at Las Vegas and Atlanta. So something tells me this team is going to win a race sometime this year. And now we're going to a racetrack where Johnny's really successful on, especially the fact that, he loves running the short tracks. I mean, there were times where, in his career that, he went on short tracks like Richmond and Martinsville and Memphis, anywhere else on the schedule, like, Sauter included. But I really think this is going to be a Johnny Sauter type of race this weekend. And I think last year he was in contention for the win, and then I think he got caught up in an accident or so forth. But my sleeper this weekend is definitely going to be the 51 of Harrison Burton. I looked at him last year. Best career finish was 4th at this racetrack. So I thought, okay, if he can transition from a 4th, maybe just a possibility to a win, I'd be really happy about it, because I think this kid's got a lot of talent, and I think, he's going to have a bright future, depending on what team, he's going to be racing on and so forth. And actually, I was watching NASCAR America, I believe it was Wednesday, I think it was like last night or something. I guess he won on one of the short tracks, I think in Alabama, in the late model race and so forth. But I tell you, I think Burton's got the talent, and there's no question in my mind. I think he's going to win a race sometime soon.
So you're going off the momentum that we talked about a couple weeks ago when I kept picking Harvick. You're going with the momentum versus maybe how they've been historically at the track.
Yes.
Excellent. I love it. Well, good luck to everybody involved, and go Noah Gragson.
All right. Yeah, he's gonna be one to watch.
I haven't picked a truck winner since I haven't picked a truck winner since Christopher Bell. I need this, guys. Come on.
Hey, not to mention Gragson won in Martinsville last year, and that's
why I picked him.
Yeah,
that's why I picked him.
And that's a good pick too.
Momentum.
I really think he's gonna be one to watch.
What do we got next?
So Sunday we have the STP 500, which will be at 2:00 Eastern Time on FS1, and actually. Reminder, guys, both races will be on FS1 this weekend, the trucks and the Cup race. So keep in mind, no, the Cup race is not on Fox. It is on FS1. So
wait a minute. I thought NASCAR.com has the race listed at 2:00.
2 o'clock, yes.
Okay, don't screw me up, man. I got guests coming.
Yeah, 2 o'clock for the Cup guys.
All right.
So, so I'm looking on the list, and looks like Ross Chastain is going to be driving the 15 car for Premium Motorsports. And, William Byron's going to have the Liberty University paint scheme, not to mention Liberty is in Virginia, the college itself. Other than that, you got DJ Kennington, you have Martin Truex Jr. driving the 5-hour energy car this weekend. So I'm going to lock this down right now. My lock is going to be Chase Elliott. Now, I know some people are going to be questioning, like, why are you picking this kid whatsoever? Like, he's not, he's got to win a race.
One of them right now. I might be one of them.
Which I'm staring at the moment, but this is the reason why. You go back to last year, both races at Martinsville. Finished third in the spring race. He won that exciting stage 2 whatsoever. You go back to last fall, and I remember this a lot, and I've watched this so many times. Had a shot to win, got spun out. No, not only he didn't get spun out, but he got dumped by Denny Hamlin with about 3 laps to go.
You got to tell the whole story. If you're going to talk about him getting dumped, you have to tell the whole story.
Oh yeah. So there was a late restart, and I remember Chase was the second car in line. So once he got by Brad Keselowski with the whole bump and run, short track, whatever it is, I thought, this kid's going to win the race. I mean, if he could hold off anybody else in this field, I really think he's got a shot to win. And then next thing you know, with about 3 laps to go, he ends up getting spun by Denny Hamlin going into turn 3, and I thought, Hamlin just dumped him. I mean, I'm going to have to admit that right now. Hamlin dumped him. I mean, I'm sorry, but, I still can't get over that race last year. But the reason why I'm picking Chase Elliott is because, think about it. He finished third at Martinsville in the spring. He could have had a shot to win last fall, but he got spun out. But if you look at his qualifying results, he qualified in the top 5. So that basically just shows you that, the kid can run pretty good on the short track, and, but, other than that, he should have got the job done, in both of those races. But let's not to mention last year's truck race in the spring. Chase ended up winning one of the 2 races when he was driving for GMS Racing and so forth. So, but that's the only name that I can think of right now. And I think Chase is going to go into this weekend and he's going to say, like, I pretty much lost last year, but I'm going to go into this weekend. I'm going to win this race no matter what happens and so forth. So that's going to be my lock. My sleeper is definitely going to be Clint Boyer because I believe last fall, I think he finished in the top 5. So something tells me that, Boyer's had some good runs this season, and I think this is going to be another team who I think is going to win a race, no question about it. I mean, you go back to last year, it was Boyer's first season with Stewart-Haas Racing. There were times where they were running good, but then there were times where, they got in accidents that were, like, not of their own doing, and then they pretty much got into, like, BS type of things and so forth. But honestly, like, I really think that 14 car is going to be a one to watch come Sunday, because he's another guy that runs pretty well in the short tracks. And there were times where, he ran really well at Richmond, whether he was driving for RCR or Michael Waltrip at the time as well. But no, those are going to be my picks this weekend. And honestly, like, if Chase Elliott wins on Sunday, everybody's all going to be like, I should have went with that guy.
All right. Did you give a hopeful, or did you just give lock and sleeper?
Lock and sleeper.
Okay, hold off on the hopeful. Listening to you talk about Denny Hamlin and Chase Elliott, the first thing that came to my mind is I can picture young Corey sitting in front of the TV a couple years ago when Kenseth dumped Logano.
Yep.
Okay, guys, Kenseth, during that, were you hot when that happened? Were you angry?
I was actually not a fan of those 2 guys at the time. I'm pretty much a Richard Childress guy, like, no matter what, and so forth.
Says the guy wearing a Stewart-Haas t-shirt. What's going on?
Well, yeah, this is basically the Tony Stewart shirt that I had, and even though I love the Bass Pro Shops colors, it's pretty much one of my favorite cars that Tony used to drive and so forth. But actually, you come to that mind. I remember I was watching that race, and this pretty much thought, okay, this was the whole thing that happened at Kansas, where I took you out, and not only that, I won that race, but you're out of the next round. So Kenseth pretty much said in his view that, okay, so you eliminate me from the round of 8. So now I'm going to take you out of contention, not only, losing the race, but that year, Logano also got eliminated from going to the championship 4. But the one thing that kind of surprised me was when NASCAR gave Kenseth the 2-race suspension. Now, that was the only thing that I kind of questioned about. I really don't think, it was kind of too harsh, that they did that. But I'd probably say that the reason why that they gave him a 2-race suspension was because you took out somebody that was running for the championship, and, you took him out intentionally. So for that, we're going to give you a 2-race suspension.
I hate to rain on anybody's parade. Actually, no, I'm really a big fan of raining on people's parades. If you've ever listened to the Logan Jabroni Show, which you did last night, thank you for joining us. You know I love to rain on people's parades. Kenseth, for 15 to 20 laps prior to that accident, was telling them, I can't turn the car. I can't turn the car. I'm having trouble getting through these corners. I'm going to wreck if we don't fix this problem. Now, they go to that restart. If he can't turn the car and Logano's on the outside and he goes into him, and the evidence was there. And I was hot not because of the spin. I was hot because of the suspension. The audio is there. Fox had it. Race Hub had it. Everybody had it. I'm having trouble with the steering. It's going away from me. I can't get through these turns. It's unfortunate that it happened to be Logano who was running for a championship. It's unfortunate that it had to happen in that situation where it looks like a revenge turn.
Right.
The reality of the situation is the steering was going away from Kenseth at a rapid rate. Watch those laps coming up to that caution before they went in, before they restart, before he turns Logano. Do I think maybe a little bit in my mind it was intentional? Sure I do. That's what racers do. Boys have at it. Police it on the track. No more fights between the haulers. No more BS. I think it's a 50-50. I think it's the steering, and I think it was, in my mind's eye, it could have been a little intentional. But again, the in-car camera doesn't lie. He's got his hands wrenched to make the turn. It's not going left. It's kind of going up and a little bit to the left. And where was Logano? To the right. So if your car is going to the right and you're trying to turn left, there's nowhere to go.
Nope.
There's just nowhere to go. I don't think the same situation happened with Hamlin and Elliott last year, but it is what it is. The past is the past, and let's move forward. Wow, I'm going to surprise a lot of people, including myself here. We talked about momentum, and we talked about race to race to race, and I'm not picking Martin Truex Jr. to win this race, but when I talk about momentum, there's tracks where you just know going in, there are certain guys that are going to lay waste to the field going back to Phoenix. We both picked Harvick. Not because, well, I picked him because I want him to win, but I know the history there. His momentum at that track. Jimmy Johnson is my lock to win this weekend. I know a lot of heads are exploding right now. People are wiping brain matter and viscera off their computer screens. Yes, I'm picking Jimmy Johnson to win based on the momentum and the success he's had at Martinsville. My sleeper, not my lock, my sleeper is Chase Elliott. Again, going back to everything you just said, and in my research, I really think this is going to be where he breaks through. If not here, then in Dover in a month or two. Tracks that he is suited very well to run at. Tracks that he's had success at, and tracks that, like Martinsville, he knows he can turn a fast lap. Now, before we go any further, who's your hopeful?
So, do you want to do the hopeful for both races or for the Cup race?
Just the Cup races. Let's keep it simple for now, and as we go on, maybe we'll change the rules again.
All right. So, my hopeful this weekend, I really want to see what William Byron does. I mean, this is going to be his first. This is going to be his first start at Martinsville in a Cup car. I mean, I know that he'd driven in a truck before when he was driving for KBM Motorsports, but I really want to see what this kid can do. I mean, yes, he finished 12th at Phoenix. I mean, he had a decent run at Auto Club, finishing 15th, but I really want to see more out of this kid. Even though this is the Cup level, and he's still learning, but I really want to see what this kid does on the short track. And if he can keep his brakes cool for 500 laps, I think he's got it covered.
All right. I looked at the field, over, sideways, upside down, and I said, who could use a win or even a top 10? And I went all the way back to Daytona in February, and I keep staring at Bubba Wallace. Darrell Wallace Jr. needs to have another breakout performance like he did at Daytona. And again, Daytona is always a crapshoot every year.
Yep.
You need skill, no doubt, to finish in the top 10. You also need to avoid the crashes. You need to avoid trouble. You need to be at peak performance. I think he was on that day. However, look at his finishes since then. Disappointment after disappointment after disappointment. This is a race where I think can be a make-or-break situation for the next couple months for Bubba Wallace. I would really love to see him turn a bunch of laps that are fantastic and get himself a top 5, if not a win. It wouldn't hurt my feelings one bit if Bubba Wallace walked away with the victory this Sunday at Martinsville. Absolutely not. Do I want to see the 4 in victory lane? Every damn week. If he won all 36 races, I'm a happy camper. The rest of you, not so much. And again, not my problem. It's my house. I'm going to be flying the 4 flag every single week. But I also understand it's not going to happen. This isn't a video game. This isn't Xbox. You can't have it. Bubba Wallace needs to have a good week this week.
And not to mention...
Go ahead.
And not to mention he's driving the SDP colors this weekend, too.
Fantastic. The old Carolina Blue 43 STP at a track where Richard Petty he basically schooled everybody.
Yep.
Every time out there. So it would be a feel-good moment even if he got a top 10. He's not going to pull a Jimmy Johnson and go, I'm upset if I finish 9th. No, he's going to be through the roof. This is momentum. I know we're going to talk a lot about momentum this year because it seems like if you don't have momentum, it's really hard to crawl back. Back in the day, you could have a guy like Tony Stewart finish sub-20 5 weeks in a row. You're wondering, is Tony Stewart done? Boom! Then he pulls 2 wins out of his hat. He's back in it, man. He's right back in the hunt. So for a guy like Bubba Wallace, he doesn't have that pedigree behind him where he could beat Tony Stewart and say, well, I had 4 bad races, but look, I just collected 2 wins. Bubba's got bupkis coming into this. So, my opinion, Bubba Wallace needs this weekend to be a top 10 weekend.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at his last few finishes. I mean, yes, even though he finished, I believe, runner-up at Daytona, I want to say, it's mostly been in like the 20s and 30s. So, yeah, I mean, it could be a recovery weekend for him. So I'm really hoping that team can bounce back on their feet.
All right, kid, you know what time it is. It's time to plug away. Get it out.
All right, so Facebook, I am on NASCAR IndyCar Central. Instagram, at NASCAR IndyCar. Twitter, I am at NASCAR Indy. Also, don't forget to go to my website at NASCARindy.org. See all my blogs, predictions, and everything else and so forth. So before I want to close this out, I really want to give a special shout out to a good friend of mine. His name is Billy Festa. So this is actually an interesting story. So I was on the Christian Men's Weekend this past weekend. So it's pretty much a church retreat weekend for men and all that stuff. And it's pretty life-changing and all that stuff and so forth. But anyways, Saturday morning, I had my Ty Dillon shirt on. So I'm actually sitting at one of the tables. I think this was I want to say 7:30 in the morning. I'm still trying to wake up and everything and so forth. So Billy ends up noticing my shirt. So he says, oh, that's a nice shirt. He said, oh, thank you. So as a result, he says, I've actually been I'm actually a big fan of NASCAR myself. So then 2 things came up in mind. I said, you're a NASCAR fan, A, and second, when did you first start following the sport? So, he first started watching it back in the 1980s. Mm-hmm. His first driver that he followed was Bill Elliott. So then once he retired, then he stuck with Dale Jr. And then once he retired, he actually is sticking with the guy that I'm picking to win the race on Sunday, which is Chase Elliott, which is, of course, Bill's son. And as a result, so Billy has a son named William, who's 11 years old, and his favorite driver is Joey Logano. So it was funny because throughout the whole entire weekend, me and Billy, we were talking all about NASCAR, and we were giving our takes about the races this past weekend, anything like NASCAR, in particular, he pretty much surprised me with his facts, and I think he surprised me with my facts or whatever it was. But I thought, man, this guy knows a lot of NASCAR more than I do with stuff. But I really kind of liked having that conversation, whatever. So,
Wait
Billy,
a minute. Somebody beat the Statmaster?
I want to say yes.
Oh, wow.
So, all I could just say is Billy. Actually, Billy was watching a little bit of the show tonight, and he's going to be watching a little bit more later on. So, Billy, if you're watching this right now, I really want to say thank you. And also it was really nice getting to meet you, getting to know you this past weekend on the Christian Men's Weekend. You really have a lot of NASCAR stuff, a lot of NASCAR knowledge that I really didn't even know of, and not to mention that you and your son are really big fans of NASCAR, and I really thank you for that. And I thank you guys for watching this show. Please check us out. If you have anybody who's a NASCAR fan, check us out. Have them talk to them about the show. Let them know that it's a really great NASCAR show to follow if you're a NASCAR guy. But Billy, I really want to say thank you, and I hope you and your family are doing good tonight. And I can't wait to see you again soon. And also, Billy, text me throughout the whole entire weekend what your predictions are and so forth, and we'll be chatting.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Billy. And it's if you've already gone and liked the page, you're automatically entered into the Speed Crate contest that ends the first week of May. If you guys have forgotten, we are giving away free one Speed Crate. If you do not know what Speed Crate is, go to speedcrate.co and check it out. It's a subscription service. I have not yet subscribed. I'm on the fence. I might not. Don't know. But I got my Speed Crate. Thank you to Brian Cox, by the way. I can't say that enough. Thank you to Brian Cox for sending me a Speed Crate and showing me what we can potentially give to one lucky listener. I got a fantastic T-shirt. I got a pennant. I got somewhere over here, right here. Hold on. Got this double-sided bottle koozie gimmick. One side is the Jimmy John's. The other side is the Busch. Unfortunately, it didn't do me a lot of good this weekend, but hey, we move on to Martinsville. I'm going to fill that this weekend with tasty, tasty beer vittles. Then I got a bumper sticker, 3 of which are down here now. You saw the bottle koozie. Behind me is the banner, and up on the studio door is the bumper sticker, the shirt. I'm going to wear that next week. You want one of these? It's easy. If you're on our list, you're already entered. If you get us a new viewer, a new listener, you get an extra entry. At the end of the deal, I'm going to break out the bucket of gimmicks. I'm going to pull one name out live right here. You're getting one free Speed Crate courtesy of speedcrate.co. As far as plugs, I don't have any shout-outs. I just have, once again, cafepress.com/Loki and Jabroni to get all your Loki and Jabroni show gear. Again, where we work diligently all the time. Hopefully add some C+J Speedway review stuff. We don't know. We're trying. We're trying a lot of different things. I give a lot of credit to producer Eddie Focus. He's the guy that put that together. I have my shirt. He has his shirt. Corey, eventually you can buy yourself a Loki and Jabroni show shirt. This is not it, by the way. I'm just saying, you could wear it right there, and you're dumping money into the shows, man. Boom. Exactly. April 3rd is the Loki and Jabroni Show 3rd anniversary. We have crime and sports and small-town murder co-host Jimmy Wisman, stand-up comedian, funny dude. He's going to be on the show. Hopefully, we'll have the... I know I promoted the WrestleMania deal at Hooters and Wethersfield. Hello.
Oh, careful.
That's Rusty Wallace style right there.
Oh, boy.
That was awesome. And I walked away. Talladega 93. Go look it up. It's on YouTube. I know you've seen it, Corey.
Yes.
I'm going to learn this new gimmick as we go along. As that gets closer, I'll have more details for you. Past that, we're going to have a fundraiser on the Loki and Jabroni Show in April, as we do every year. And I'm going to promote it here on this show because not only is it for a friend of mine and a really good cause, he is a huge race fan. He likes the show. Whether or not he sees it, he's a busy guy. Chad Hatfield. We're going to talk about him in 2 weeks. Once we break into April, I want you guys to open your hearts, open your wallets, and help out this fundraiser. For us, it's only for the month of April on C+J Speedway Review and Loki and Jabroni Show. For the rest of you, you have from today, but you don't have the information. So you'll have from the 1st of April all the way to October 31st to make donations to this wonderful, worthwhile cause. I hope all of you can find it in your hearts and your wallets. $5, $10. Whatever you can give. If you give $1, when you hear what this is, you're just gonna be like, wow, I need to donate. So again, like Corey said, thank you everybody who's watched. Thank you everybody who shares us out. If you want to win some free stuff, get us some new viewers, get us some new subscribers. Subscribers is important on the YouTube channel. The more people subscribe, maybe we can put an ad or two in the beginning and make a little more money. We don't know. But we're all about entertaining you guys for free each and every week. Now, in April, from what I understand, Senor Corey may not be able to do Wednesday nights. So we may have to move a little bit to the side.
Right.
Can't mess with Tuesdays. Saturdays are for the boys. Tuesdays are for Loki and Jabroni.
Yeah.
Thinking maybe Monday night, while it's still fresh in everybody's mind, for the month of April, we do Monday nights. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd probably say Monday nights is good for now. I mean, I know, because I don't know if you know this, because Mother's Day weekend, I am going to be with a church group of guys, so we're going to be going down to the prison in Norfolk, Massachusetts Correctional Institute. So we're going to be down there from Thursday to Mother's Day in May. So it's going to be very interesting, because the guys of our church group, which is at St. Basil's Salvation Center in Methuen, we are going to be spreading the word of God in the prison. And the guys are down there, they have done the time, they're in there for the rest of their lives, but all they want to do now is they just want to search for God, and we're going to give it to them in 2 months. And I'm actually fortunate enough that I'm going to be on this team, and it's going to be it's going to be exciting. And I know that April is going to be pretty busy, because our first team meeting is going to be in 2 weeks, so we're going to be planning this out from now until all the way up to Mother's Day. So I'm a little bit nervous, but I'm excited for it, and it's going to be a great opportunity.
That sounds awesome. Once again, keep us updated on the things you do. And we'll talk. I'm going to talk to Eddie once we go clear. Monday nights could be a good thing. I have nothing going on. I get out of work at 2 o'clock and I'm home. I got my thumb in my face all day, waiting for something to do. So for the month of April, I know you got your meetings. You might see us on Monday night. Might be a better deal. It's fresh in everybody's minds. We can get the jump on everybody else. Fantastic all the way around. For producer Eddie Focus, that's Corey Huffnagel. I'm the Jabroni. We will see you next week. Ciao, Bella.
Good night.
Whatever that means.